There are so many games in Overwatch that you should have won, but at the very end, you make a really vital mistake that costs you the entire game after literally dominating the lobby for a very long time. You can't close it out and you lose. Now, this is actually the reason that you are stuck in your rank and can't climb. So in this video, we're going to go over the 8 game losing mistakes that you still make, but press that like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. I really want to get to 100,000 subscribers before 2025, so do me a solid and let's jump right into it. Now, the first thing that we got to talk about is wasting ultimates when it's a one fight differential. A lot of people, especially in overtime, don't realize that they need to win one fight, or if they lose one fight, the entire game could be lost, right? You could even have a lead on a game mode like push and you lose one fight, and then all of a sudden you're in a one fight differential territory where if the enemy win that fight as well, they're going to beat you. They're going to win the game. And it's really important that you recognize when you have to win multiple fights in a row, because it tells you when you should invest a lot or when you should invest a little bit of ultimates. And what I mean by that is, oftentimes you'll walk into a situation where you need to maybe win 2 team fights to win the game. You walk into a fight and everyone pops their ultimate, and yeah, you win that one, but you need to win one more or you're gonna lose, and the enemy is gonna have 2, 3, 4 ults to y'all's 0. So especially when you know that there are going to be like a max of like 1 to 3 fights, this is when you need to start planning ahead. Think multiple fights ahead. Oh, we're going to win this one. How do we win the next one? And in a way, you want to even play for it. Like, we need to win this fight only using 2 ultimates so that we have 2 more for the next fight. Or thinking, I'm not going to use my ultimate here because we need to win this fight with a conservation of ultimates, and I'm going to get my team to use them, and then I will use my ult in the next fight after that. And if you communicate, this is better, but I would always err on the side of being more disciplined and cautious with your ultimate, especially when you know everyone is going to be really trigger hungry, pressing that Q button. You could be the one person that reserves, and you can clutch up and be the difference maker in the last fight that really, really counts. Stop throwing these games away that you should have won very easily because you're just really not thinking a couple of steps ahead. Now, another one that comes up quite a bit is not capturing an objective before a fight and basically getting a whole extra fight when you shouldn't have one. So this is pretty much what everyone uses as justification to always have 3 on cart. They're like, oh, 3 on cart, we could actually push it further. But it's not about how fast you're moving the cart. It's about how many fights will you have. If you're trying to get to another objective on a payload, right? You only really want to put 3 people on a cart if the cart is going to be able to capture the objective and swap spawns before the enemy can contest. This means that it's a whole less fight because it doesn't matter if you cap it and then all you die. It doesn't matter. You already secured the value, the objective, right? But if you're putting 3 people on and the enemies can touch anyways and you get a fight, you're putting yourself in a much worse situation for that fight. So it's going to really depend on the situation, and sometimes you're going to have to make the call yourself. Recognize, though, that if you and other people can push up past the cart, past where you're trying to contest and hold, and enemies have to literally push through you in order to get to the cart, they're going to waste abilities, they're going to waste their health, and it's going to be really easy for you to win the team fight because they can't focus on you. They have to basically beeline straight to the objective to stop it, and they're going to be really, really easy kills. But you got to make sure that when you're pushed up, you're not putting yourself at risk, you're not dying, you're not getting picked off, because if that happens and then the enemy come and contest, you literally just threw a fight, and it's not even going to be a full team fight because they killed you and someone else, and now all of a sudden it's 5v3, and then you could literally just throw and not even really get a team fight. So you got to kind of make that evaluation yourself, and it's something that you should be hard on yourself if you were wrong. If you stacked 3 on point, or you tried to put 3 on point and the enemy still contested and they had a team fight and y'all lost that fight, you should be like, I made the wrong play. Let me reevaluate this for next time. And this is the best way to learn, and this is the best way to further develop and get a sixth sense for when you should stack people, when you should push forward, and how you should play these really nail-biter fights. Now, number 3, and this one's a really big one, not thinking about enemy ultimates. It's really, really easy to like worry, oh, we only have 1 fight left, or oh, we're about to win, and you're not thinking about what ultimates enemies have, and they can easily win a whole fight by themselves. I see this so often, especially in push, in the late game. Enemies are all stacked together. They're not even thinking about what the enemy ults they have, and they're all getting freaking slammed by Ryan, or they're all getting grabbed. And you might think, Mills, how am I supposed to play around some of these really powerful ultimates? You need to make it hard for them to get that Grand Slam. You need to make it hard for them to get a 5-person shatter. You need to make it hard for them to get a 5-person grab. You need to make sure not to waste all your utility, like your sleep and your nade, because that Genji's going to come in with a blade and you know it's coming. If you haven't seen an ultimate for several fights, the enemies have it, and they're going to come in and they're going to want to use it right away. And really, a lot of players lose to a reverse snowball because enemies get to win fights with singular ultimates. Like, if an enemy just gets to walk in, press 1Q, and just win a fight cleanly, that's a really, really bad situation for you. Because now they get to sandbag the rest of their 4 ultimates, they get to use 2 more in the next fight, and then another 2 or even 3 in the fight after that, which means they could completely flip the ultimate advantage and snowball you out of the game. So you never want to have a situation where enemies just get to walk up and get everything they want, and the only way to deny that is to think, 1, it's not about pushing the objective faster, it's about setting myself up in the right positions to win the fight, and 2, think about how you can play around a certain ultimate. How can you position? What abilities do you need? How can you pressure? How can you make it hard for the enemy to get value with their ultimate? If you do these things, you will not lose a fight to one singular ultimate, and you will not get snowballed to anywhere near the same amount that you're getting snowballed right now. Now, moving on to number 4, and this is a really simple one, but important. Make sure that you're always pressing tab to gather that information. Most importantly, so that you know when enemies swap heroes. It's incredibly common to see this, especially in like Masters and above, where someone on the enemy team, when they don't have an ultimate and they're not trying to come up with a normal team fight, they're trying to generate an X factor, they'll swap to something like Widowmaker. And then out of nowhere, people aren't expecting it, they'll get a couple of kills, they'll win a fight for free, didn't even need any ultimate to win that fight, and then they further snowball from there. And if you are really aware of enemy swaps when they try to go for these plays, and you could set yourself up in a position to shut it down or not get them free value, then you're going to be able to basically deny their entire play, and they're going to whiff, they're going to get killed, they're going to get farmed, and all of a sudden you get to further snowball. It's really like some of these X Factor plays are kind of a gamble, and they're gambling on you not being attentive enough to realize what they're doing. But if you do catch them, then it's super easy to shut down, and oftentimes you just get to guarantee get that game instead of losing a game where you're like, what the hell, they swapped to Widow at the last second and all of us died. It's because y'all weren't prepared for it at all. No one was attentive enough to pay attention to character swaps, and you lost because of it. Now, this 5th one is a little tricky, and I don't know if I even want to give you this advice because it can encourage players to play the wrong way, so please listen to the full thing before you start to incorporate it into your gameplay. So, this mistake is letting opponents capture or flip an objective. This happens most often on Koth. It also can happen on Flashpoint, and what this means is you're fighting an enemy team, and you're about to have a team fight, and maybe no one has control of the objective yet, or you have it, and you allow the enemy team to take it, or you're in a situation where you don't take it in time, they take it, and then the fight happens. It keeps going, it keeps going. And the problem with this is that oftentimes a longer fight can last a lot of percentage. It could be 20, 30, 40, even more than that percentage-wise, which means that enemies could hypothetically take an objective, fight you in a really long fight, lose, and they got an entire fight's worth of progress. And even worse, you didn't get an entire fight's worth of progress. So they basically got 2 fights worth of progress because you didn't put any presence on the point. And I want to make this clear. If you are not in the right position, you do not have the right resources, your team isn't playing the right comp to take objectives quickly or take objectives at all, don't force it, because you're just gonna die, and if you die, they take it, you lose the team fight anyways. It doesn't matter. It's pretty much a wash, and you put yourself in a worse situation to try and control that objective and lost the team fight because of it. So it's a little bit of a slippery slope, and that's why I'm telling you, you gotta make sure that you're doing this at the right time. But if you're a person like a tank or someone that can contest sites without dying and actually just put pressure and help your team put pressure on point without dying, it's a good idea to deny flips. It's a good idea to deny captures. So even if the fight goes on long, they only get, progress once the fight is complete. And sometimes it's a good idea to try to rush fights if the enemy did capture, because you would like an opportunity to have another fight. But this is all dependent on a lot of factors, like, does your team composition get advantage fights in the long run? Is it actually a mismatch in composition? There are situations where you just want to kind of get the fight over with, go back to spawn even if you lose it, and then swap your composition up. But I will say that this is the one tip that I'm a little afraid of, because I don't want to encourage you to make bad decisions, but it's also important to point out other things you're not doing, especially as you start to climb, in moments where you could have made all the difference just by changing up your position a little bit, pressuring the point a little bit, and denying flips and captures. Now, moving on to number 6, we have not swapping to get back faster. And this is always the really hard decision, right? You're in an overtime situation, or you're in a fight for an objective, something important. Maybe it's on payload or whatever the case may be, or it's on Koth at the end, and you have an ultimate maybe, and you have to decide, do I let myself walk all the way there and then have an ultimate that might turn the fight, or do I need to swap to something that could stall, or how do I play it? And it really comes down to identifying what your role is in a given situation. If you don't have any stallers and you know the enemy's about to capture, nothing else matters besides getting onto point and delay. So you need to go to a character that can create stall, create that delay for your team, and hope that your team finds a way to generate value. Now, if you already have a stall, you have a Doomfist, you have a Tracer, you have a ball, whatever it case may be, you want to swap to something that can give value or stay something that can give value. This could be your best character, this could be a character with an ultimate, or it could be something that gets crazy high value if enemies aren't prepared for it, like a Widowmaker, for example. So knowing what your role is, like, what are you trying to accomplish? What is needed here from you that your team need? Like, do they need value? Do they need picks? Do they need more stall? What do they need, and what can you provide with your swap? This will help you make the best decision on what to swap to, when to give up your ultimate, what characters to play, and how you can get the most value at potentially denying a 3-point capture or a fast capture, or getting to that 1 minute mark, or whatever it is, so that really allows you to win a lot of games that you wouldn't have if you just stayed your same character and just walked out and didn't think anything about it. Now, a huge mistake that a lot of players make that's costing you games is staggering over and over and over again. And this really happens where when a team, will win, maybe they'll capture all 3 payload points, or they'll start rolling through the enemy, but then they start getting rolled on the way back. And they thought the game was in the bag. Maybe they get a little bit lazy with their gameplay, or they start getting rolled and they start trying to be a hero. They're going to hedge a little bit and start trying to get a pop-off play. They're going to play a little bit for the clutch, because why not? They're winning anyways. And whatever they're doing, or whatever you're doing, it's creating stagger situations where you're not really getting a full fight. And by the time you finally rally everyone together, hey, everyone's together, we're full fighting, then y'all lose to ultimates, and then people start getting tilted. People are like, what the hell are you doing? Everyone gets mad, and then you could lose an entire game because of it. And the one way to really solve this is by forcing full fights, real fights. And this means that you cannot be the one that staggers. This means that you need to make sure that you're giving proper distancing, proper respect to the enemy team. You can still poke someone, but do not die. Do not be the one that staggers, and force your team to group up as much as possible and move with them. Be the one that is never dying, never staggering. And keep in mind that just because you are getting snowballed doesn't mean that there's some fundamental error or mistake or bad pick or composition problem. This always is what people go to. Why are you playing this? Why are you playing that? Oftentimes, that's not even the case. Oftentimes, you lost one fight and then you never really grouped up, and then you died to ultimates. It has nothing to do with what you picked. You could pick the best meta composition ever. It doesn't matter. You're still going to get snowballed in any situation if you play like that. So starting to argue about picks and things like that, and oftentimes swapping is not even the right thing to do, because having an ultimate can be the thing that stops the snowball, can be the thing that gives you a real team fight, or forces enemies to, at the very least, exhaust ultimates in response, so that you get a raw fight with them eventually without ultimates affecting the team fight. Regardless, this is something that you can control, and it's one of the most important tips I have for you in this video. Now, last but certainly not least, we need to talk about putting enemies in awkward positions. And it really comes down to a couple of things. Denying the enemy carry. You know that that person is going to go for a big play. You know that that person is the person that could make a difference. Doing whatever you can to deny that person value and mitigate their impact. That can put them in awkward positions. On top of that, you want to highly pressure enemies with ultimates. Put them in an awkward situation where they don't feel like they have full health, full resources in order to pop an ultimate. One of the greatest examples I can give you is if the enemy Genji has Blade, and you know they have Blade, but you're constantly focusing him, shooting him. Every time he takes a little damage, he's like denying getting peeked. He's yelling at the support, heal me, I want to ult. And then maybe he's investing things like deflect and using some of these abilities. And sometimes he has to kind of rush his ultimate because he knows that you're going to keep targeting him over and over again. And you might even just straight up kill him, which is super simple. But if you don't straight up kill him, you're at the very least putting extra pressure to force the issue, which is always good. If the enemy gets to do things on their terms, that is really bad, especially with ultimates. They get to line it up perfectly, wait till their team pushes in at the same time, call for it, and set up everything to really flow really well with them. But if they have to do it in a rush, then there's all these little mistakes that can happen. And that's really what you can exploit by doing this. And another thing, and the last thing that I'll talk about, is watch for enemies doing high-risk plays, especially when you have the game in the bag and they're requiring, you know, some sort of a miracle to pull it off. They need to win some fights without using any ultimates, several fights in a row. Enemies will go for some higher risk stuff. Maybe they'll go for a flank. They'll go for a one clip. They'll hide behind a corner. They'll try to flank high noon. Whatever it is, watch out for these really high risk plays and keep in mind that your enemy is desperate. They have their back against the wall. This is where they're going to pull out all the stops. So don't get swept underneath that pressure. Don't allow enemies to do something that you could not possibly imagine. And keep your head on a swivel and you will be just fine. But if you have any questions about dominating in clutch time, definitely let me know in the comments down below. And do me a solid and smash that subscribe button. I really want to get to 100K subscribers, please, by 2025. Anyways, thank you, and I'll see you next time.